Thank you very much.
Others in opposition?
Go ahead. Well, you guys can leave.
Here, okay.
You guys can leave and let the other.
Good morning. I am part of a group called EMF Refugees. I became electrosensitive when a wireless transmitter was applied to my bedroom wall. In the first week, I lost a third of my hair. My doctor took a biopsy and said my body had gone into some form of shock. After that period, not suspecting anything wireless, I love wireless, I developed all kinds of symptoms. I was, my heart raced, my memory was gone. If I would read a paragraph, I couldn't remember it. I was very insomnia, all different kinds of things. I found out this is microwave illness. It's been studied since the 30s. And once the transmitter was removed, my symptoms completely vanished. But it left me very, very sensitive to wireless now. So when I go into Pete's Coffee, I get vertigo and I start to faint. Sometimes when I'm driving, I'm very afraid of going past a cell tower because I start to have symptoms. And I've been told I'm in a pre-Alzheimer's state. I'm a California contractor, painting contractor, and muralist. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Amy O'Hare. I'm with Stop Smart Meters. I was made electrohypersensitive by a cell site, 150 meters from my house, 50 meters from a playground in my neighborhood, a school playground. And I urge you to give more control and more time for local governments to regulate cell siting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, just briefly your name and opposition or.
My name
Please.
is Amber. My name is Amber Trueblood, representing Stop LA Cell Towers. Actually, I'm not paid to be here by any cell companies, and nor do I have a union representing me, to change the rules or the sublines. So I'm here representing the kids, and I have 4 small children and an electrosensitive husband. I know many of you think that this is not real. I hope that none of you have to experience it firsthand in your family. Please oppose this bill.
Thank you.
My name is Rola Masri. I'm a chemist by degree, and I have 3 children, and I'm electrosensitive. I suffered for 7 years not knowing why, and it took learning about Wi-Fi in my children's school and doing my own research as being a scientist. There's plenty of research out there, and I urge all of you to really look it up because the majority of the research does show harm.
Thank you.
Thank you
So much.
Hello, committee. I'm Melinda Willey with Citizens for Responsible Cell Tower Placement and Don't Sell Out Mount Shasta, not in anyone's backyard. Jody has passed out 3 pictures of what would have happened in Mount Shasta had T-Mobile erected a cell tower behind people's backyards. The first one shows a woman that bought her home with her life savings, put her garden in, has lived there for multiple years, and we used T-Mobile's own specifications as well as Google Maps and real estate wheels to show where the tower would go in her backyard. Also, the beautiful view shed like the painting behind you, you can see Mount Shasta there that is a world destination. The cell tower would have blocked the view shed. Many people buy their homes to have a beautiful view shed. The second picture is of a family. 2 of the members have had cancer. They believed that they were living in a very safe environment. Using the specs from T-Mobile, you can see that the cell tower would be 49 feet from their backyard. These 2 people were very concerned that their cancer may come back. The third picture shows a tower going in 250 feet from this home, and next to it is a peace garden. It also blocks a view shed. And we have many more pictures like this from Mount Shasta. So there is a situation with safety regarding this because of the electromagnetic radiation coming into people's homes. There's also the safety of where the towers are, how close to the homes. So we have to mitigate that and have regulations in place.
Thank you so very much.
There's one more thing in the paper.
Please, we've got a ton of witnesses here. We normally only let folks just simply indicate opposition. I'm trying to be respectful because you took the time, but just, please be respectful of everybody else's time, too.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Read your paper today. There's a good cell phone article in there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Morning.
Now, was that your wife you were kissing back there?
Yes, actually, she was.
Okay.
I-
You're getting two for here.
Yes.
I saw that.
I'm the electrosensitive husband, and we flew up here this morning just to ask you guys to oppose AB57. Like she said, it is a real thing. I don't want to be this guy. I don't want to have these powers, but cell phones and cell towers, they literally make me sick. And so
You don't use a cell phone?
don't have one. I've
Thank you.
actually, well, it's a long story, but
Okay.
I've created
Thank
a
you so
way.
much.
We have landlines. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. You're one of the few.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Senators. My name is Mark Graham. I live in Elk Grove. Two very important points, and I'll be brief. On December 7, 2014, the California Medical Association, which represents 40,000 California doctors, approved a wireless standards reevaluation resolution. It essentially said three things. Wireless radiation is hazardous for human health, and the current maximum exposure limit set by the Federal Communication Commission is inadequate to protect public health, and their recommendation was that the standard should be reevaluated. Now, in the summer of 2012, the Government Accountability Office in Washington, D.C. recommended that FCC take another look at the data, which the standards were developed in 1996, and formally reassess its current standards based on the science with the possibility of revising it. March 29, 2013, FCC formally began that reassessment of the data, and to the best of my knowledge, they have not yet completed that process. I recommend that the
Thank you.
committee oppose this until FCC has finished their reassessment.
I'm going to cut everybody else off. I'm trying to be respectful, but you got to respect everybody else's time. You got long lines of folks here.
Good morning. My name is Janice Hidalgo. I represent Elk Grove Facts, Elk Grove Families Against Cell Towers at Schools. And I would like you to oppose AB 57. If cell towers and transmitters are fast-tracked without proper notice given to the community, it will leave residents unable to protect themselves and their families from the possible dangers and also reduce property value damages. The Appraisal Journal reports a 20% property value decrease when cell towers are built in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, I'm Jessica Dennings here in Sacramento, West Coast Director of Moms Across America. I have a degree in physics, and I worked 7 years for the Navy in pulsed electromagnetic radiation effects. And I found out I'm electromagnetically sensitive from Eric Windheim, who's coming next. But it was like fingernails on a chalkboard, and I never could locate why. It was a shared common wire, and it's code. But I'm just telling you, there's so many effects of electromagnetic radiation. We have ionized cells, and I think we don't want to give up local control and the need for planners to be sensitive to our needs. Thanks.
Thank you very much. There's an opposition.
My name is Eric Windheim. I'm a certified electromagnetic radiation specialist, trained and certified by the International Institute of Building and Biology. I have spent the last 3 years collecting 75 pages of sworn declarations of harm and injury from purveyors of microwave radiation. I think you should take a look at this and forward this whole thing over to a health and safety committee. Here's something else. I present on the record at SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District, documentable facts that the FCC high-level officers are lying. If we can't trust the FCC, everything else is a downstream effort. We need to go back and make sure that these people are enforcing their grant deed of authorizations, and SMUD is not. They don't care. They do not enforce violations of the grant of equipment authorization. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Others in opposition?
My name's Roberta Arns. My sister was the first person who spoke today. I witness her demise. I witness what she's gone through because she became sensitive. Every day, it's so scary. The foggy brain, the loss of hair, headaches, nosebleeds. She can't live in her own house. She needs to sell her house. She doesn't know where she's going to go. As she said, she goes to the coffee. She goes to, Starbucks or anywhere you go, Target, anywhere. And you cannot get away from it. You cannot get away from it. You can't see it. I can't feel it. I don't know but when I turn on my cell phone, she can feel it, okay? We can turn our phones off, but we can't turn off these cell towers. It's so scary. I've worked in a space that's next to one of these on occasion. I don't work all the time there, but I know physically that my heart rate goes up. And I've had my sister there to do a presentation. She couldn't finish a sentence after she'd been in this space near this cell tower for 2 hours. We had to get her physically out of there. Please, I oppose.
Thank you so much.
Kevin Modis, Center to Keep Healthy Families. The author of this bill is a physicist, and he lacks the background and training of a neuroscientist or cellular biologist that can clearly say that our cells are damaged before heating. The FCC guidelines only take into account heating effects, and this is the critical problem. This is what makes wireless inherently dangerous, and our FCC guidelines that are supposed to be safety standards that aren't, inherently inadequate. We need to join the California Medical Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics in saying these safety standards are inadequate.
Thank you.
We need to oppose this bill, AB57, and stop ignoring health effects, especially with Beau Biden, Vice President Biden's son, recently getting a tumor behind his ear and dying from it 3 weeks ago, the most common place to get a tumor from your cell phone. Joining LeBron James, who had a tumor in front of his ear in his salivary gland.
Thank you, sir.
Other countries are
You have
showing
taken
research of health
testimony.
effects. Thank you.
Please, thank you. You knew the rules. Sir. Mr. Chairman.
With all due respect to the author, I'm Johan Klist, representing the City of Ontario. They typically have about 15 to 20 applications a year. Where applications, they have to take more time on, are generally those that are incomplete. They're opposed to the bill, feel this would be rushing the process a little bit more than it needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed Behrens on behalf of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. The county has opposed prior iterations of the bill and will continue to review the bill for amendments taken.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Paul Gonzalez representing the cities of Diamond Bar, Lakewood, Torrance, Roseville, Cerritos, Camarillo, Rancho Cucamonga, Thousand Oaks, and Norwalk. We appreciate the author taking those amendments, but unfortunately at this time we still remain opposed. Thank you.
Please.
Mr. Chair, members, Christopher Castrillo on behalf of the City of Beverly Hills, the City of Santa Monica, and the Office of Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti on opposition. Thank you.
Kirk Blackburn on behalf of the City of La Cañada, Front Ridge, in opposition.
Lauren De Valencia, representing the American Planning Association, in opposition. Our members do want to work with the carriers to provide the broadband access to our communities that we serve, but we must also protect the community members and the environment for which the infrastructure is going in. And just want to reiterate that the FCC twice denied this deemed approved provision for brand new sites, and we don't think that California should be putting something forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Kiara Ross on behalf of the cities of Burbank, Glendale, San Marcos, and the Marin County Council of Mayors and Council members. We appreciate the amendments but remain opposed to the bill. Thank you.
Jonathan Clay on behalf of the county of San Diego, also in opposition. Just an observation, what you're seeing today is just a sort of a small kind of snapshot of what you have to deal with at the local level. And this legislation really does tip the hand and doesn't provide for that public back and forth to allow all sides to be able to get their issues out on the table. We're opposed.
Thank you.
Good morning, Kiana Bess on behalf of the California State Association of Counties. Want to also thank the author for the amendments taken thus far. Unfortunately, we are going to still remain opposed to this bill and would urge your consideration of potentially a sunset on this because of the controversial nature of the measure, so we could reassess in a few years' time the actual impacts of this legislation. Thank you.
Steve Cruz on behalf of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. Appreciate the amendments, but we remain opposed to the bill.
Thank you.
Lori Johnson on behalf of the County of Monterey in opposition.
Roxanne Miller representing the Mayor, City Council, City of San Jose. We also appreciate the amendments, but would respectfully suggest to the committee, why is this issue here the last 2 days to make the deadline? It would be most helpful if there was a way to waive the rules so there was more time to have this very important discussion, which I know you, Mr. Chair, and members of this committee would like to see. So with all due respect, we are opposed.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Karen Lang on behalf of the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors in opposition. I did want to observe that by the end of this session, there could be 4 separate laws requiring expedited treatment for solar panels, which already exists, electric vehicles, this bill, and now apparently broadband towers as well. And it's hard for local governments to pick one of the 4 winners. So it would be great to get some direction on that. So until that's fixed, we're opposed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Questions from the members? Senator Pavley.
I wanted to say something because I'm supposed to be in EQ at this.
Is your microphone on?
I think I just turned it on. Yes. I wanted to say something because I'm going to be in EQ. You get about 75% of my cities are on the opposed list in the 2 counties and everything. And the challenge is not that they're opposed to broadband. I mean, it's irrespective of, we perhaps in Health Committee should look at ongoing studies relating to proximity and everything like that. I'm not dismissing that case, but on a land use case, especially in the smaller cities, it's difficult to have the time not only to have all the hearings, but really engage in alternative siting. It's all about the siting, correct? This compressed time period and the precedent of approve it with the next number of days or else it's deemed approved is really a problem. The applicant drives the extension discussion too. It's very one-sided, and so I'm not supporting this today. I don't know what the options are as far as a 2-year bill or longer discussions, but if you can make the case that it's such an urgent issue for broadband, what other land use issues will come before us? If you don't approve it, affordable housing within 30 days, deemed approved. I mean, you go down a slippery slope, so maybe it's my background from local government. And also the realization in small cities, you might have 2 people in your planning department. You put everyone else's projects that have been in the queue on hold while you have to fast track, and your council meets maybe once or twice a month. Very, very hard, and so this doesn't particularly work. So I'm not supporting this today, but I think it's worthy of a further discussion.
Thank you.
Maybe it's a 2-year bill.
Thank you. Others? Senator Bill.
The way the amendments are written, the new amendments, I have a question.
And no cities.
Does this prevent local zoning ordinance to require that when they submit an application, they have to deal with public safety, environmental, health aspects in the application when it's submitted? Under your
That's a false statement.
Sir, please, let the man
No,
testify.
no,
Don't do that.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Please.
Just telling the truth.
Well, you can't.
I understand that, but let the man say what he wants to say.
I'm asking the author, please.
There are a list of things that they can look at, and I'll get my expert to discuss that.
So, yeah, so what I want to know is, when you review zoning matters, there's a broad set of discretion to local government to regulate land use and zoning. And when an application is submitted to a local government, it has to be based on what the application requirements are. If the application requirements include, for this specific type of application, the issues of aesthetics, of course, like we talked about, environmental, public safety, health issues, those kinds of issues, if the local government decides that they want to include that in an application and require that, does the clock start when the application is complete? And when the clock starts, if the application does not have the required amount of information in the application, can the department or the government say, we need, in order for you to complete your application for submittal, you have to submit the required information. So that's the question.
Please, of course.
This bill does not change anything about what a local government can, the basis for which they can approve or deny cell siting, or they can ask more questions, they can apply their aesthetic ordinances, they can look.
Before they submit the application.
Before,
Before the application is determined complete and submitted.
So when you submit an application, if the local government believes that it's incomplete, they have 30 days under federal law to come back and ask any questions they want. And that stops the clock until the applicant provides the complete
I
information.
have a list of requirements for the application. I say, okay, if you want to apply for this kind of thing in whatever city it is or county, you have an application form, and you say you have to submit the following information and plans and in accordance with our zoning code. It'll have a list of things on the application. And say you submit an application and you didn't complete the information that's required by the local government. And the local government says to you, well, we can't accept this application because we determined that this application is not complete. Now, when does the clock start? When the application is complete and accepted by the local government? Or if the person does not submit a complete application, does that start the clock? So answer that one. That's
So the
Planner question.
well, that's because I am a planner.
That's
so
my question.
I know those things.
So,
you know,
Yay question.
I mean, when the normal way of doing it is you have to have a complete application. It has to be stamped. There's a stamp goes on it saying complete, and then the process, the law starts ticking. There's a lot of these timeline laws in existence on all kinds of things.
That's right.
Whether they're state laws or local laws or whatever, there's all kinds of timeline. But they always say that you have to start the clock when the timeline clock starts when the application is complete. And if you submit like we used to say, if you submit an application on the back of a grocery bag, we can tell them, hey, that's not complete, buddy. You have to go back and do it the right way.
Sir, let the witness
I'm asking him.
we normally don't let people sit up here on these kinds of witnesses when it is, but this is the author and his witnesses to be asked questions. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bell, under current law, the clock starts when you file your application, and then the local government has 30 days to review that for completeness. And if they come back and say your application is incomplete, they must give you a list of what they need. That stops the clock until the applicant provides the complete information.
No, but you know, you're not listening to what I'm saying. I won't even let you file. I'm on the counter. I'm a planner. I'm reviewing your application. I won't even let you file unless I go through my checklist and determine that you have a complete application. You cannot even file the application. You see?
I understand your question.
You know why that's happening? Because people do that all the time. They submit, oh, here's my application. And then the guy looks at, well, he left off 8 items. He didn't submit 8 items that he was supposed to submit. And then the guy says, well, you know, your application's not complete, buddy. You have to go back and fill out and submit the things. And then we're going to look at it, and then we'll accept your application. And then you can be declared as filed. You're not filed until the application is complete. Now, if they require all these things in the application in the zoning code, all the things I mentioned, and they don't submit it, it seems to me the clock shouldn't start. Do we have discretion? Do we, the government in California, have discretion to determine whether or not the application is complete? That's the question.
The federal government has regulations on completeness of applications, and that is preserved in this bill. So the essential answer to your question is the clock will not begin until there is a complete application that is filed. The clock will not resume, until there is a complete application filed.
I'm a municipal attorney, and I'm writing a code. I'm writing a zoning ordinance. And when I write the zoning order and I say you have to have a complete application before the clock starts, I'll put that in my code, in accordance with the federal law. I put that in my law. That's what my law will say. Will that law be acceptable in terms of the federal law?
The ultimate answer is yes, but there's a technical thing I want to make sure that I'm answering your question correctly. Under federal law, the clock starts when you file your application. If it is determined to be incomplete, then that will stop the clock until you complete your application.
Yeah, you're not answering my question. I'm going back to before you even filed it.
Senator, the answer is no, all right? In the sense that if it's incomplete, the clock still starts. However, it can be immediately stopped that same day if, sorry, I'm yelling. I get too excited. What can I say? I just love this bill. So the answer is it does start then, whether it's complete or not. However, it can stop immediately if the guy at the counter says, or the city says, this is not complete. So it can stop that first day if the city says this is not complete, and it only starts again when it's complete, and it can stop that first day. So I think that does what you want it to do in the sense that an incomplete application is incomplete.
No, what I'd like to see is, I'd like to see, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
I'd like to see the city government or county government be allowed to request a complete application before they file the application. And then after they file the application, then subsequent to that, the clock starts, because that's when the public review takes place, after the filed application takes place. That's when anybody in the city can get a copy of the application, review it, and it's in their neighborhood, so they want to see that there's going to be something built in their neighborhood, and they can go down and look at the plans and all the information. But if they go down and look at the plans and then the city says, oh, we're going to get this, but they have 30 days to do it because and if they don't submit it in 30 days, we're without any discretion to approve or deny this. I don't think that's a process I think is correct. I think the correct application would be to allow the application to be
I think there's some
complete
question
first.
there. Why don't you clarify that?
All right, so you can stop the clock on the first day, and it doesn't start again until the city gets all the information. Now, you just don't want the clock to start?
At all.
At all. And that, unfortunately, is not allowed by the FCC. That is not allowed today. What is allowed is you can stop it on the first day until you get all that information. And that's the FCC's decision, not ours.
Well, I'd like to see that. I think I would like to do it the other way.
Well, that is federal law.
Have some attorneys.
Senator Morlock.
Chair, Senator Bell kind of shows maybe the bigger issue, and that is you go to the planning department, you go to the desk, and the clerk tells my wife says, my husband's an elected official, we want to get a permit, we want to do this by the book, and all we want to do is replace windows, and the clerk says, well, then you need architectural renderings, and you need to hire an architect. And you say, well, wait a second, it costs more to pay for an architect than just put the windows in. What kind of silliness is this? And so I'm new here, but I'm seeing all these bills, and one of the speakers said it, we got to give fast track to this group and to this group and to electric cars and so there's something happening in the planning world where someone's saying it's not working right. And so this is a reaction, my observation, to what's happening in the planning department. And we had a similar situation in Orange County, Mr. Chair, where we did a performance audit, and the report came back, our planning department was not being customer friendly. It was a gut punch. It was terrible to get a report like this on all the things that were going wrong in the planning department at Orange County, and it's on the web if you want to look at the report. Not very complimentary. We made massive changes. It was a whole different look, a new management, new approach. How do we deal with getting these things done? And so looking at it that way, Mr. Chair, we have assessors. And when someone files an appeal because their property values have declined in a recession, which happened in the early 90s in Orange County, the assessor could not complete the requests for reductions in assessed values within 24 months. And once you hit the 24-month deadline, then whatever the applicant asked for as a value, that is the value. You had a hard deadline. If you couldn't get it done, it was kind of ironic. They made a big deal out of how the assessor lost at least $1 million in revenues, only to have our treasurer like a month later lose $1.7 billion. So it was sort of kind of like a pimple. But the issue is, you know, you got to get things done in a certain time frame. And I don't have answers. I'm not a planner. But we've got to get more creative. We've gone through a recession. Is it lack of staffing? Is it lack of thorough lists, like Senator Bell was just referring to? Are we being very thorough enough with predetermined criteria that the city council or the board of supervisors said, these are the criteria. This is where we will not put a palm tree. This is where we will, you know, do things. And I wonder, are we being creative with planning departments where we have cities that can band together and get one person to be an expert on, you know, one specific topic like this one, so you can get things moving a little quicker. I don't know if this is the answer, but there's something systemic going on here that needs to be addressed, and you're seeing people scream and cry out about planning departments. That's what I'm seeing. And so you've got an industry that's providing, I think, a reasonable request, but how do we all together, you know, really deal with the issues, and how do we help? And if the industry is willing to pay the fees to get the staffing to get this thing done in a timely manner, then how do we object to that if we're able to charge the right amount to get this done? So I don't have all the answers. I certainly don't have any answers on the other topic that's come up today with RFR. But Mr. Chair, I guess the question would be, what can we do to get these two parties to work together better, instead of saying the FCC said 5 months and that's all, and then the cities deny, and it's just, then they're going to come back, right?
And the other, you know, look, any other questions from members?
I just want to make one statement.
Please finish.
Response to it. Everybody likes to beat up on the guy on the counter, and since I was there once, how about the conflicting directions from the policymakers, the city council members, who at the same time want to expedite things, and then at the same time pass ordinances that require all this specific, you know, there's like, you know, a policy kind of schizophrenia, if you want to say it that way, regarding land use in a lot of cases. And I think the law we have here is good. I like the general direction that we're doing, but I think to be fair to everybody, you know, we shouldn't have people game the system by not submitting complete applications. That's all I'm saying. Okay, I'm saying that. I'm also saying that we expect, when we pass a law allowing these things, that it won't be just one application at a time. So they'll come in with like 20 cell towers in this community, and then the planning department will be sitting there with 20 applications to review.
But Mr.
So there's those. You got to understand how it would function. And if you make it function easier, the easier way to function is if they submit every required detail at the front end of the thing, then you can get the thing done efficiently. If they don't, then it's like a lot, like Bill was saying, a lot of Assemblyman Quirk, a lot of delays, a lot of timeouts, that's what drives people nuts.
But Mr. Quirk, isn't, just to address the concerns that Senator Bell has raised, the folks that are asking to put up cell towers aren't somebody who put in storm windows. They're professionals for these companies, whichever ones they are, whose job it is to cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and they're specially hired professionals. Now, they can certainly make mistakes, but by and large, these are folks that, you know, you can disagree with the placement, and you can disagree about the electromagnetic sensitivity as to whether they should be or not. But I would suggest that that this is the smallest problem that we're facing in terms of the competency of the people who are paid professionals to fill out these applications. And I suspect that that's going to be a small element of the problem. The real issue here is the land use issue. And I just want to address there's a very human story here of which I have no knowledge of, because certainly I'm not affected by it and don't know what the impact is, but the federal government clearly has, from all the studies I've looked at, people can agree and disagree. We've been through this in many instances where there's disagreements over science, and the federal government's made a preemptive decision, and I suspect that whether they were owned by somebody or not, I can't make those determinations, but I doubt it, and I suspect that they analyzed it, and our job here is we're looking, it seems to me that we're looking at a very narrow bandwidth. We have a federal FCC decision, and the question is really what Senator Morlock raised is about citing these things on a more expedited basis and balancing these things out, with still giving the local government authority to city or county decisions regardless of the placement, construction, modification of a wireless telecommunication facility. So all those arguments can be made locally. There can be voluntary agreements to extend, correct? That's kind of where we're at. It's a pretty limited deal. I understand because the subject matter, it raises some of the scientific and health concerns that have been raised by folks that have opinions in that regard, but seems to me that that's not within our jurisdiction, but this is just a completely separate issue. And on that, I'd like to hear your close, and we'll get a motion.
Okay. First, I agree with you, Mr. Chair. Second, I know, Mr. Bell, you would like the clock not to start, but that's not allowed under federal law, and we can't pass a California law that says it doesn't start. But what is allowed is on that very first day, if there's something missing, they can stop the clock. Now, that means the clock is starting at 1 rather than 0, but 1 day out of 3 months or 5 months, I don't think that's really going to make or break the system. The big thing is they are allowed to stop the clock until they get all the information they need. And furthermore, if they don't get it, they can just deny the application. So they can stop the clock, and if on day 1, and if the company never brings that stuff in, the clock stays at day 1. Not 0, which is what you would like, but day 1 out of 90 or 150, 120, I think that would take care of the issue. So, 1 is close enough for government work, I hope.
So if there's a possibility, you could clarify that a little bit in your...
I think it is clarified, but I'm certainly willing to work with you and your staff.
Is that your close? Is that your close?
Do you want me to talk about the health, or I can?
It's your judgment. Just we're running out of time.
All right, fine. I will just say the standard is set by the FDA, not the FCC, and that cell towers are thousands of times lower than that, even if you're standing right below one. Furthermore, we're getting a lot more radiation from TV stations and radio stations than cell towers. As a matter of fact, the closer you are to the cell tower, the less radiation from your phone, because your own phone doesn't have to work as hard. And again, thank you very much. And I ask for your aye vote.
Okay, this would be a motion do pass to the floor, not to rules. Do pass to the floor. Is there a motion? Motion? Moved by Senator Hernandez. Secretary, call the roll.
Hertzberg.
Aye.
Hertzberg, aye. Wynn. Aye. Wynn, aye. Bell. Bell, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Laura. Morlock. Morlock, aye. Pavley.
5-0. Hold that open. Thank you very much. Thank you. Excellent. File item number 3, AB 160. Assemblymember DeBobney. Thank you, sir.